Hi guys, this is Tech Howdy. I welcome you to another video tutorial on creating an ASP.NET Core application with Angular 7. In the last video tutorial, we created the view for our email confirmation, and we have completed coding all the required classes related to our email sending services. Now we have to make sure that we use this email sending service in our account controller, which is basically going to send out the registration emails. Now our account controller has the register method, and if you notice here, we had put a comment when we created the register method saying that here in this application, in this function here, at this point we will send the confirmation email to our users. So when the registration was successful, what we want to do is, first thing, we will add the user to the role of a customer, and then we return the following information, which is the username, the user's email, the status, which is 1, and the message registration successful back to the client, which is the user. But we are not sending any confirmation email. So now here, before sending this information back to the client, we will send our confirmation email to the user using the SendGrid email service that we created. With the help of dependency injection, we will inject it in this class and then use it in this method. So let's start coding our email sending service inside this register method. Now the first thing that we want to do when we are coding our email sending feature here in the registration method is we need to hook up our email sending service with the identity service, which is basically managing the users in our application. We are using ASP.NET Identity Framework. So we need to hook up this identity framework or this service with our email sending service. So first thing that we want to do in our application is go ahead and create a property for our email sender service. Now, as we all know that we are going to make use of the interface to access the send email sender service. So let's create a property of type of the interface. So this will be a private property of type email sender, which is the interface we are going to use to access our email sender method. Let's add the missing reference, and we will use the email.email, which is this folder here. Don't use the ASP.NET Core Identity UI service. Please make sure you use the email reference that contains the interface for email sender, because these classes also contain an email sender service interface. So we don't want to use that. We want to use the custom interface that we built. So it's under the email folder. So I'm going to use this emails using ng core auth, which is my namespace dot email. So make sure you do the same thing. And then let's give it a name, underscore email sender. Now you all know the drill. We have to instantiate it. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can also put this on a separate line to make it more readable. So let me do that. And here, let me now add the interface, which is email sender. And here, this is not a semicolon, and here I'm going to email sender is equal to email sender. So now we have injected this, and now email sender service, and now we can use it with the help of our interface object that we created here. Since now we want to hook up our email service with the identity service, the token or the code that is generated for confirming the email should be generated by the identity service. And to use identity service through dependency injection, we have created this object here, which is underscore user manager. So we'll make use of that. So first thing that we want to do is create a variable, and let's call it code, because that's what it's going to store the value of the code that is going to be generated that we need to send to the user in the email. So we will use the await operator, since it is going to be generated asynchronously using our user manager object dot. It will have a method that can be used to generate this token. So let's find that method. It's called generate email confirmation token asynchronously. So let's do that. And now the token will be generated and assigned to this variable. But token to be generated for whom? Token to be generated for our user. We have already created this user who is going to be added to our customer role. So we want the token for that user. So now this error will disappear because we have specified to generate the token for the user. So the next thing that we would need here is a callback URL. What is a callback URL? So guys, when we are going to send a confirmation email to the user is going to click on that confirmation email. And when he clicks on the confirmation email, obviously we will redirect the user to that view that we just created, the email confirmed view. But do you think that the ASP.NET user table will get updated when the view is shown? So next time when the user tries to log in, it is going to tell the user, the application is going to tell the user that you have not yet confirmed your email. It wouldn't allow the user to log in. That's because we will show the user the email confirmed view, but this email confirmed table would not get updated. This 0 needs to be 1, changed into 1, and that can only be done if we write some logic here that if the link is clicked, then execute some function, and that function's responsibility will be to update that table. So that function is going to be called as confirm email function. So let's create that method here, which is going to be an HTTP GET method, and we are going to use the allow anonymous attributes, which is available under Microsoft ASP.NET Core authorizations. So in case if you get an error, just add the missing reference, and let's create this method. So public async, it's a task, and returns an I action result. And let's call this method as confirm email. This method will require two parameters, which is the string user ID and the string code, which is going to be provided when we call this method inside registration. Now let's go ahead and quickly write our logic for this method. So first thing that we want to do is make sure that if this user ID and code is null or white space, we return a bad request. So let's write that condition. So I have added an if condition here, which will check if the provided user ID and code in the parameters of the method have the value of null or white space. So we will return a bad request and say that the user ID is required in the model error. Next thing that we want to do is create a variable called as user, and we will then get the user with this user ID. For that, we are going to use our await operator, since we are going to use an asynchronous method with using our user manager object. We will find the user by ID asynchronously, since we have the ID of the user. Next thing that we want to do is we will add two conditions here. Now the first condition will check if when this query runs and if the result of this query is null, which means that there is no user with that user ID, therefore the query returned the result null. And if it's null, then we will return a JSON result with a string message, and I have called the message as error. you can write your own custom message within these strings. Now, if the result was not null, which means we found a user with a user ID, then the first thing that we want to check is that the user's email is confirmed. If it is already confirmed, which means this value is 1, then we don't need to again confirm the email. So what we will do, we will directly redirect the user to the login page. And only if that email confirm value is 0, which means that the user's email is not confirmed, then we will go ahead and confirm that email and update that table column. So let's go ahead and write that code now. So here, which means that in this here, we will say that the user was found, but his email was not confirmed. So we will run a query to confirm the email. Let's call that as result. And then we will use the await operator since we want to execute the query asynchronously. Using our user manager object, we will call the confirm email asynchronously method. And here, when we are calling this method, we need to specify two parameters. One is for whom we are confirming this email. We are confirming it for the user that was returned by this query. Second, we need to specify the code. Since our code here was generated in our register method by ASP.NET Identity, we need to specify, so we need to provide the same code. If the code is different from what the code that was provided by ASP.NET Identity, then the user's email will not be confirmed. So that's how ASP.NET Identity email confirmation works. So the same code that we provide here needs to match the code that was generated by ASP.NET Identity. So now the same thing we will do here. We will check if the result is succeeded, if the email confirmation was successful. So let's add an condition here. So let's add the condition if this result dot succeeded, which means that this query was successfully executed. And then if it was successfully executed, then we will redirect this user to that email confirmation page or that view that we created here in the notifications controller. So first we will specify the action name, second the controller name inside the return redirect to action method. Now when we are redirecting to the action, as we all know that our notification controller action method requires us to provide two parameters, which is the user ID and the code. If we don't provide this, then it will redirect us to the login page. And only if we provide these two values, it will return the view. Therefore, going back to account controller, we will supply these two parameters using the new keyword. We will specify these parameters within these curly braces. That's the user ID and the code, so that the view is returned back to the user. Now, if the result was not succeeded, there was some error. We need to handle that. We will write it here in this else code block. So first thing that we want to do is create a list of string, call it errors, and new list of string. And then we will run a for each loop, and for each error in this errors. So inside the result dot errors, so I'm sorry, result should be here, result dot errors. So if it's not succeeded, that means there are some errors. So for every error inside that result dot errors collection, what we want to do is we will push that error or add that error inside this list. So errors dot add the error that is returned by each loop that is running, and we'll convert that to string. That should be it. And finally, what we want to do is return new JSON result and we will convert this string list into a JSON array. That's it. So now whenever this error is returned, you guys, as you all know, we have used in the registration method to display errors in the modal pop-up. You can use the same feature, like you can create a modal pop-up for email related errors and so on. But now here, these errors which are being returned can be displayed inside a modal pop-up or inside an alert box and or inside the console itself of your browser. So it's up to you how you use it, but a JSON result will be returned with all the errors inside it. Now our confirm email method is completed. So now let's make sure we use it inside the register method. So let's go back here, and here now we will use it inside the callback URL variable. So let's create a callback URL. Once again, a callback URL is the URL. When the user clicks on the confirmation link, the user will be redirected to this callback URL, which is our confirm email view, and the method that is going to be executed is the confirm email method, which is going to go and update the database table. So the way we would do that is, for this variable, we will use our URL property dot the action method, and the action method that we want to call, we will first provide the name of that method, which is confirm email, which we just created here. The next parameter, it's going to be the controller name. Our controller name is account, and then finally we want to provide the parameters that we need to supply to this confirm email method, and this confirm email method requires two parameters, which is the user ID and the code. The code object is here in this variable. So let's go ahead and use the new keyword inside the curly braces. First thing we will do is user ID is equal to our user object dot ID, and then code is equal to this code here. The next thing that we want to do is we need to specify a protocol that will be used to request this confirm email action. So the protocol that we are going to use needs to be supplied here. So protocol, we are going to use the http context dot request dot scheme. So using this http context dot request dot scheme, we are going to execute this action method, this http action method. So that should be it for this callback URL. Next thing that we want to do is, after the we have now assigned the values to our variable, now we need to make sure that we send the email to the user. So how do we send the email to the user? To send the email to the user, we'll make use of our email sender object that we created. So using the await keyword, which operator, which we will call our underscore email sender object, and our interface email sender will give us access to the send email async method, which will help us to send the email. So if you go back to our SendGrid email sender, you notice the interface gives us access to this method, which is send email async. So let's call this send email async. Once again, the send email async method will require us to pass these parameters. So user email, email subject, and message. So let's do that. So let's add this here. So to get the email of the user, we can use our user variable that stores the user's information dot the email property, and then for the message or the subject, we can say inside the subject, that's my domain name, and confirm your email. You can change this to your domain name, or you can write your own subject inside the string. And then the last parameter is inside the message, that's the body of the email, the message that you want to display. So I want to display the message, please confirm your email. And then I want to create a link. So to create a link, HTML link, I have used the a tag and used the href attribute. And here I have concatenated the callback URL. And we all know the callback URL, when clicked, will use the HTTP protocol to execute this action method, which is confirm email. And as we know, it can be accessed by anonymous users. So when they click on the email, this method will be executed. And then if the email is not confirmed, the email confirm view will be displayed to the user. So we will test this in our application and make sure that everything is working fine. So this should be it for this video tutorial. In the next video tutorial, we are going to test this email sending service that we created and make sure that the email is being sent to our newly registered users, and when they click on the link, their emails are also being confirmed and the ASP.NET user table is being updated. So please like and subscribe my channel Tech Howdy. Once again, thank you, and all this code will be available in the DevOps repo. The link will be provided in the video description.